Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film VHS 2. Is the sequel to VHS, and this is a anthology found footage horror film. This film is shorter. It's more like a horror sequel in that all the subtlety of the original is gone. Not that there was much subtlety in VHS, but it's more about gore in this one. It's more about violence, and the flow is a lot better. One thing I liked about the first VHS is none of the shorts were that similar, and you could never really tell who directed what, but the flow is a little odd because of that, because you get so many different kinds of horror storytelling. And in this, they're all different. None of them are similar. Anthology films aren't a great genre to begin with, and anthology horror is an even worse genre. I think it always works out pretty well because they have to find different ways to have the camera in there for the footage to be found. It kind of reflects a day when you used to have to tape trade to get like cool stuff. Before there was viral videos, you'd get like freaky, creepy VHS tapes of things that you trade with your friends. I think there's one guy committing suicide on air and things like that. I saw a few of them, but I've heard of it as a larger subculture. The cool thing about this film is, and I said this in the VHS review, but it's very true, is that a lot of times we talk about found footage. I always wonder, who found this footage? How was it edited? Why did they release it? Do they feel creepy releasing someone basically being murdered? Cannibal Holocaust is a film, the first found footage film, and they actually go into that and go a lot deeper than most found footage films do. But VHS 2 isn't really into the morals behind found footage films, but they are interested in the wraparound story. Everyone calls it the wraparound story. I don't know where that came from. But the overall story that's like going between each of the various stories is someone finding the footage and actually watching each of those tapes. And I think that's kind of cool. It's kind of a good way to comment on the genre, like, you know, someone actually finding the footage. I can't name another found footage series that I've seen where you watch the people who have found the footage other than Cannibal Holocaust. There are various segments. I will go through them all. The first one is called Tape 49, which is directed by Simon Barrett, who I'm not very familiar with. It's about these two investigators who go to the house of one of the guys from the first VHS, and his mom has sent them there. They're trying to figure out what exactly happened to him and where he is and if he died and such like that. And so they go in and they find all these various TVs sitting around with fuzz, and they're trying to find out what happened to him. And they find all these tapes around, and there's two detectives, a boy and a girl, and the guy trying to find evidence around the apartment, and she starts watching the tapes, and the tapes are the various segments. Now, the first tape is Clinical Trials, which is by Adam Weingart, who did the wraparound story for the last VHS, and is doing the film called You're Next, which has a lot of buzz about it. It comes out in August. Clinical Trials is about this guy, and he gets a new eye transplant, which is like a video camera. They found a reason for video to be going on all the time, and it doesn't look too hokey because he has a video eye transplant, which is creative. Through this transplant, he can actually see like dead people. The more he interacts with them, the more real they are. That one's very creepy. It relies very much on cheap scares, but it's one of the few films I've seen that uses cheap scares this well. Every time I watch them, cheap scares work really well on me when I watch a VHS movie. Cheap scares normally at the beginning of a horror film spook me out, but this film, even when you see someone walking in the background, it's like you're anticipating it, and it's like freaks you out thinking about how someone's gonna walk in the background. And Clinical Trials uses that kind of feeling throughout it. The next one, which is by Eduardo Sanchez, who directed the Blair Witch Project, that's really how the found footage started in like this era. But Eduardo Sanchez and Greg Hall directed A Ride in the Park. It's kind of like a zombie thing where this guy has a camera on his helmet. He runs into zombies. The next one is directed by the director of The Raid Redemption, which I love. The Raid Redemption. It's by Gareth Evans, and it's also directed by Timo Tjahjato. I think that's how you say his name. And that one I think is my favorite, and it's very gory, but it's about this news crew who goes to investigate a cult. They've gotten a special interview in their safe haven, their compound, and they go, and things do not turn out as well as they should. And then the last one is Alien Abduction Slumber Party, which is directed by Jason Eisner. He directed Hobo with a Shotgun, and although the alien costumes in this film are lame and cheesy as all hell, how he did it is really cool. It's a simple idea. Like, who would just want to watch a film where people just get abducted and that's it? But that's all you need to do, and he was really good at using the simple premise and doing something with it. I think this flows better than VHS, but it's less surprising. It's probably a little less interesting. I liked how Clinical Trials was kind of an EC Comics thing. I don't think VHS 1, the first VHS really didn't do an EC Comics thing. And I like Ride in the Park, you know, they hadn't done a zombie thing. And each of them is actually fairly unique and very unique. Like the cult one, I think, is the one that's probably going to be etched in your brain as just being gory and disgusting. The first one I watched at night, and I was like, well, this is only freaking me out because I'm by myself. It's nighttime, so it's going to freak me out because of that. But I watched this during the day. I mean, I turned off all the lights and tried to make it spooky, but it actually kind of freaked me out. And I always get really into these VHS films. And I think because they're actually fairly decent horror films, I think this one might work better as a more fun horror movie than the last one. The wraparound story in the first one is so much better because these guys go into this house and they're paid to do it, and there's a lot of mystery around it. I think that's cooler. The detective thing was a little lamer. There are a lot of bad anthology films out there, and a lot of times you'll like, you know, there's one that's prominent. For me, I think for a lot of people it's Safe Haven, but I kind of like all, I don't really have a problem with it. I think the wraparound story for me was the weakest. I still think this has some of the best cheap scares in the business. And I think the other thing is the wraparound plot, so it's called, is usually fairly terrible and stupid, and someone who you find incredibly annoying hosting it. I never liked that concept. I like how there's kind of a reason these people found the tapes, and there's like a creepy element of VHS towards it, you know. Although why some of these modern technologies are put on VHS is a little silly, I think. I feel like maybe a sequel should be like MOV file or something, or AVI. They just have a VLC player playlist on their computer, and they're like, don't watch this in this order, and then they just hit play. And but I guess that wouldn't be as fun because you need a reason between. So the VHS tapes, I guess give them some sort of a narrative device. So I guess I get that. I guess I'm thinking too much about the logistics of VHS. I like this horror anthology series, and I hope it continues. I'm a little surprised at how well they handled this one, and I'd be curious to see someone take on a third one, as long as they get the right directors. When you have very different directors, you get very different horror films, and you get an interesting kind of horror anthology film, rather than having guys who are kind of from the same sensibility or artistically similar. That's very boring, but that's, I think, what keeps VHS fresh, and it's one of the few horror films that actually genuinely creeps me out and gives me the nervy feeling I used to have when I was a kid and watching horror films, you know, late nights when my parents were asleep. And I don't get that from a lot of horror films nowadays in the theater, but for some reason both of these, when I watch them on my computer by myself, have equally creeped me out that I might see some crazy girl in the corner or something, or weird ghost, or someone's gonna come out and slit my neck. And that's the kind of fun of horror. And I think VHS 2 gets that as well as the original VHS did. So if you have seen VHS 2 and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments, and subscribe if you would like to.
So if you've seen Transformers and you'd like to comment, comment below, and subscribe if you would like to.